What happened after your stepdad moved in? My stepfather demanded I live as the family dog. I needed to crawl on all fours and be confined to a doghouse to keep me humble and safe from my own sexuality. Dan moved in when I was 11, bringing rules that made my skin crawl. He measured my shirts daily, banned me from talking to boys, and made me sit on the floor during dinner because good girls stayed low. Mom said he was just protective after only raising sons before me. She'd been so lonely since dad died that she ignored the way Dan watched me, how he commented on my changing body with disgust. When I got my first period at 12, he acted like I'd committed a crime. He said I was becoming dangerous, that puberty turned innocent girls into temptresses who destroyed families. When I was 13, Dan found me trying on mom's lip gloss. His face went dark. You think you're a woman now? He dragged me to the backyard and pointed at the shed. Pack your things. You're moving out there. When mom protested weakly, he explained his solution. I'd live as the family dog until I learned humility. No walking upright, no human speech, no eating at tables. He trained the sexuality out of me by making me remember I was an animal, not a woman. He bought a collar with my name on it and bowls labeled beach. I had to crawl everywhere, bark for attention, and sleep on a cushion in the shed. If I tried to stand or speak, he'd spray me with a hose in winter or lock me outside in summer heat. Mom watched from windows, wringing her hands but never intervening. It's just until you learn respect, she whispered when Dan wasn't around. Please don't make this harder. Living as Dan's dog was the most humiliating thing imaginable. Every morning I'd crawl to the back door and scratch to be let out for bathroom breaks in designated corners of the yard. Dan installed cameras to ensure I never stood up, even when alone. He'd make me fetch things in my mouth, roll over for guests, and beg for scraps of food. When his friends visited, he'd laugh about his method for keeping teenage girls pure. Obviously he couldn't send me to school in this state, but he had a solution for that too. Dan told the state I had severe anxiety and needed homeschooling. Instead, he gave me dog training manuals to study. I spent hours practicing being a good girl to earn basic necessities: sit for water, stay for food, heel for a blanket when temperatures dropped. He documented my training in videos, saying other fathers needed to see how effective this was. The hardest part was mom's compliance. She'd pet my head while crying, saying things like, "You're such a good girl, this will be over soon." But she'd also fill my dog bowls and call me for walkies, playing along with Dan's delusion. When relatives asked about me, she'd say I was going through a phase and preferred the outdoors, making it sound like being a dog was my choice. I developed sores on my knees and palms that got infected. When I tried showing mom, she just bought me knee pads. Every day I felt my humanity disappear more and more. I was becoming the animal they saw me as. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I turned 15, and Dan decided to breed me. He brought home a 17-year-old boy from his church, explaining that good dogs needed puppies, and I was the right age for a litter. The boy looked horrified as Dan explained how he'd mate us in the shed while supervising to ensure proper behavior. "Don't worry," Dan told him. "She's well trained. She won't bite." He got out of there as fast as he could, and I broke one of Dan's cardinal rules as soon as the door shut. I spoke out loud like a human being and said, "I'm not a dog." They were the first words I'd spoken in 2 years, and my voice came out rusty and broken. Dan raised his hand to hit me, but I kept talking. "I'm a human being. I'm your stepdaughter. This is insane." Mom started sobbing, and for a moment I thought she'd finally help me. Instead, she grabbed the spray bottle. "Bad dog," she said. "You know the rules." I stood up on legs that barely remembered how, towering over her despite my atrophied muscles, but Dan charged at me with my leash and collar, screaming about teaching me a permanent lesson. I ran, my legs buckling, toward the neighbor's house where I'd seen children playing. Maybe someone would believe me when I told them I'd been forced to live as an animal. The neighbors called the police, but Dan was ready. He showed officers 2 years of therapeutic documentation, proving I had severe psychological issues. He'd fabricated an entire history: therapist notes about my clinical lycanthropy, prescriptions for antipsychotics I'd refused to take, testimony from church members about my violent delusions. He even had mom's tearful statement about how I insisted on living as a dog despite their efforts to help me. "She bites," Dan told the officers calmly. "Attacks other children. We had to keep her separated for everyone's safety." He showed them the shed set up like a bedroom, not a kennel, with edited footage making it look like I chose to crawl. Mom nodded along, saying I'd threatened to end myself if forced to act human. The officers believed every word. They approached me with restraints while Dan signed commitment papers. 72-hour psychiatric hold, the male officer said, for her own safety. I tried to run, but my legs, weak from crawling, buckled. As they carried me to the police car, Dan leaned in close. "The facility I chose has a special ward," he whispered, "for girls who need permanent behavioral modification. They'll make the dog training look like paradise." Mom wouldn't meet my eyes as the car door slammed shut. Through the window, I saw Dan mouth the words, "Bad dog." Full story on channel below.